And I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
America and beyond. And thank you for all of you who are joining me right now. I'm going over my ballot. I'm still going over. I just, I that's why I don't like to vote until it's election day, until it's right there. I just don't like to vote. I mean, what if one of these saps screws up? I voted for these people, and what if one of them screws up? And and how bad of a screw up do they have to do before you go, wow, I don't want to vote for them? I just got a word, someone that I was supporting. I found something out about this person, but it's in their personal life. And I don't like to dig into people's personal lives, but yet I now know this something about someone who I didn't know about them before, but it's been confirmed to me. And it's not one of those traits that would land you in prison or anything. It's not a crime. You didn't commit a crime. And it's something that a lot of adults do. And I didn't really care. I don't normally care what people do in their private lives. Do you care what people? You shouldn't. I don't give a damn. And so if I don't care what my next door neighbor does, I'm certainly not going to care what the person who I'm voting for, I don't care what they do in their lives, as long as they are constitutionally coherent. Wouldn't you agree with that? I would agree with that. But you got to ask yourself, how far will you go following that rule that you would not bring in someone's personal life into as a category for you choosing them as a politician? And they could be a drunk, they could be womenizers, they could be cheaters on their wives, they can be deadbeat dads. There's a lot of categories that a lot of these politicians sometimes fit into. And I'm always the first to think, well, I don't want to get into people's personal lives because I'm not hiring them for what they did in the bedroom or what they do in their families with their family's business or whatever they do in their private life. Whatever you do, whatever you choose, whatever. And so I found this little thing out about one of the people. And it's like I said, I'm not even going to mention it because it's really not worth mentioning, but it's like, this now about this person. And it's like, damn, I just told people to vote for that politician. And now I'm going to vote for him. I'm going to vote for this person. But it's just, I didn't know then what I know now when I marked him down on the ballot. And so it doesn't matter because, like I said, I'm going to vote for him. So I would still tell all of you to vote for him. It's not something so bad that I think it would eliminate him from the category of not being able to vote for him. But you too got to start asking yourself, well, at what point do you stop at the womanizer? Okay, a guy's a womanizer, guys. And that one really wouldn't bother me. But would you stop at some guy who's going to cheat on his wife. And you got to think about it. If he's going to cheat on his wife, he's probably going to cheat on the rest of us anytime he can get, right? You would think that. But what if you've found someone with a good record, good voting record, and you don't know anything about their personal life, and you find out, oh, they're cheating on their wife. Do you then still go, oh yeah, okay, can I support that? And that's a huge one because it goes back to I don't want to know what's in people's personal lives. I don't want to know what's in their bedroom. And I don't care what's going on. And I don't care what their wives have decided to do about them. And I'm not hiring anyone to sleep with. I'm hiring someone to keep the buses and trains running on time. You see, it's a completely different job than voting for somebody to be your lifelong partner. If I have a lifelong partner, I expect that lifelong partner to be loyal, just as I would expect my partner to expect me to be just as loyal. So I don't know if that's what someone else would agree with whoever they choose as their partner, and meaning a man or a wife, a husband or a wife. So I just found this stuff out about people right before I'm getting ready to vote, because tomorrow's election day. Don't forget to vote tomorrow. Please don't forget to vote. But it's right before election day, and I'm finding this stuff out just a couple of days ago about people who I said, "Oh yeah, vote for that guy. Vote for that guy." And then someone comes along and he tells me something that's like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be telling people to vote for that guy because I don't know what that's going to mean when he gets to office. What if he gets to office and he makes all the right decisions?" Well, okay, maybe he's a screw up in his personal life, but he does really great politically. Well, what if he's doing great in the business world? You see him doing great in the business world. You see other people doing great in the business world that you question, but you know their personal lives are in shambles. How do you judge someone that you're going to vote for when they're running for office? And this is some pretty serious questions because you're going to have to make that decision by tomorrow. And so I like I said, I don't give a damn what anyone is doing in their personal lives. I only care that's what policies they're going to stand behind. That's really what we're fighting for. Tomorrow is the election of candidates, mostly candidates who are going to decide on policies that we want and don't want. That's really what this is about, policy. And the only other things we're going to be voting on is the measures that are on the ballot, which will set policy. So we will get to vote on some policy through direct democracy. But usually an election is just picking out candidates, and they will be the ones who will sit in the position of commissioner or city councilor or legislator. And they're the ones who are going to make all these great decisions on what policy they're going to put in place. So going back to what I was talking about at the beginning here with people who you find stuff out about, you find out that their personal life is in a shambles, but you start seeing that, well, they get into office and are doing really good. How much of that do you ignore? And I know this is kind of a strange topic to be talking about, but tomorrow's the election. And I'm still, I'm looking at my ballot. I don't want to change anything. I'm pretty solid with the decisions I've made and the people who I've picked. There is one person that I didn't choose when I was going over the ballot that I want to choose and let you know about now that I am supporting. She's on the Bandon City Council. That's Shauna Schmier. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering Shauna's last name, but it's Shauna Schmier. I am voting for her for city council, but no, I'm just it's a legitimate question. How much of morality are you willing to give up to get a good politician, or vice versa? How much someone better have really outstanding morality if they're a lousy politician? But then again, I really wouldn't vote for someone who was a lousy politician, but was a really stand-up guy. So that goes both ways. So I just, when you're voting for people, and that's really what we're doing, people we hope will make those right choices. It's hard to know once knowing something about a person, whether that imperfection is going to make them a person who's going to vote lousy when they're sitting on the council, the commissioner, or in the legislature. And so I don't know. It's just that's one of the things I hate about election day, because you're going to have people you're going to vote for that you're going to find out, why the hell did I vote for that? But Dick Anderson. Dick Anderson is a good example for that. I told people, oh yeah, you want to vote for Dick Anderson. And the first legislative session that he was in, we knew he was a lefty. And so you have to ask yourself, how many times are you going to, do these types of things where you're willing to sacrifice morality over a good politician or someone who's going to make the right choices? Because then in there is another argument too. Some people are good politicians. I'll give you an example. David Brock Smith is a good politician. I don't trust the man. I didn't vote for him. He's in one of my districts. And then you have people like Todd Vaughn. I did write in Todd Vaughn, but Todd Vaughn was a lousy candidate because he was just too damn honest. And I believe that when Todd Vaughn, if he would have been elected in David Brock's position that he's running for now in Senate District 1, he would have gone back to the Senate and he would have been another Art Robinson. I believe he would have stood up there and made all those right choices. And that's what makes him a lousy politician. A good politician, a good politician says thank you and bends over and says, may I take another? And they take another and they go, thank you. Now may I take another? And that's the continuing play up in Salem or up in Washington, D.C., depending on where these people are serving. So Todd Vaughn is one of those who when we got behind Todd Vaughn before the general election in the primary, we knew that the chances were that we weren't going to win. But we wanted to levy some damage, and we wanted to show people that there are alternatives out there, and that not alternatives are, good politicians. You don't always want good politicians, just like you may not want someone who has nothing but good morality. I mean, you want to vote for a saint if you expect him to go in and to do a dirty job. I don't think so. You're not going to find that person. So that's just like people who are good politicians. David Brock Smith, people like, trying to think a really, really good, Christine Grayson is a really good politician. Wyden, for the most part, he's a walking dead man, but he's a good politician. Merkley's a good politician. And I'm not saying they make the right vote. They never make the right vote. They're dumbasses, but they're good politicians. They know how to go to DC or to Salem, and they know how to play the game to the point where they are automatons. They are under control and manipulated by the machine, whatever machine is in control of them that day. They have different machines, different political machines that basically take over the different politicians at different times. And knowing this, you got to send people who have at least the fortitude. They may not be the best people of moral character. They may not be the best people who are the best politicians, but they may be the best people for the job, the best people to do the job, the best people who are actually going to say no. And they may be quirky. They may not have the best clothes, the best hair, the best teeth, the best poise. They're unpolished. They're just citizens like you and me. And that's the hard thing about politics today, is finding really good candidates who are also really good politicians. Because what you find out is that the guys who are the really good politicians, they're dirtbags. And the people who would be good politicians are actually good statesmen, good diplomats, people you truly want to send to Salem or to Washington, D.C. Those people, they get ran over in both directions in politics because they are honest. And you know this by what recently happened to Dennis Lithicum. You had Kim Warren from Medford come out, and she decided that she was going to endorse uh, the Democrat, and Kim Wallen, that was it. Kim Wallen, state representative. Kim Wallen. She decided to endorse Tobias Reed. And you have to look at this, and especially if you're a Republican and you've been working for a Republican candidate for the primary and now the general election, and specifically the primary, because I'm thinking of Todd Vaughn when we were running. You get guys like Todd Vaughn who don't make it through because they're not good politicians. They're just not the proper people to impress the powers that be, because the powers that be, they want to find people who are, in control, the unions, the special interest, the wind energy corporations, you name it. There's dozens and dozens of these special interest groups out there who want to buy politicians. It's part of the beast. It's part of what's going on. And you don't have to go far to find this stuff. And then people are surprised when the state representative, Kim Wallen, endorses Tobias Reed. I certainly wasn't surprised, but I was angered that another Republican is stabbed us in the back. That just happened recently. And here we are going into an election, and we're supposed to be united. And then you have people like Kim Wallen stabbing the Republicans in the back. And that's why I'm telling you, you may not want to vote for someone just because they are a good politician. You may not want to vote for somebody because they have good morals in their personal life. That's not what's important. What's important is, are they going to have the fortitude to stand up to people in Salem, to people in Washington, D.C., and tell them to go screw themselves? We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to tax my neighbor. We're not going to put another fee on the elderly and what little they have left to live on. And you would hope the Republicans were in on that whole thing, but they're not. Because you look at people like State Representative Kim Wallen, and you would like to think, oh, well, she's the exception. This is not like all Republicans, but she is like all Republicans. She's totally like all Republicans. And that's the other thing about getting frustrated with working with trying to get good candidates into office is, first, you got to fight your own party. And you see how they are corrupt. They are as corrupt as any get-go. And then you've got to fight the opposition party, the Democrats, who are corrupt as you can get. And then you realize that there's a uniparty. The uniparty, that's people who are in the establishment, the money that be, the powers that be in both parties that basically are unified at the top, unified against anyone who wants to stop government interfering with our lives, because, well, we're nothing but products anymore. And the only thing we have left to fight with is happening tomorrow. And that's what I'm talking about. Tomorrow is election day. It's election day. And that's where we're heading. That's where we're going with all of this. And you hope you're going to make those right choices. Because if you don't, you're going to find out the next day that you're stuck with Kamala. Oh, great, Kamala. There's a good choice. Or you're going to be stuck with Donald Trump, which is a much better choice. But really, is he going to change anything? Is he going to be any better than what he was when he was in the White House the first time? I don't know. I have high hopes, but I don't know. And I don't see any white knight on a horse coming to save us. No one's coming to save us villagers. That's not going to happen. And so we need to stop looking at Donald Trump as the one to save us. He's going to set a couple of good policies and stop a lot of bad regulations. I hope he does that. That's going to be good. That'll work well in our favor. But If he doesn't win, we get stuck with Kamala, and we get stuck with this weird world that's going to continue where we're going to sexualize children. We're going to allow doctors to mutilate children. The industry, the industrial medical complex will use the transgender agenda to feather bed their pockets. They're going to line their pockets with the mutilation of children. They're already doing it. We're we're already allowing it to happen. And in Oregon, it's happening at a great rate, and it's going to happen nationally if Kamala wins. So that's what we got to look forward to. So I know people are saying, well, that's why this election is the most important election. And I know you want to believe that because you really wish this all would get over with, but it's not going to get over with. It's going to continue. It's going to continue. Well, Wednesday, the day after the election, it doesn't end. I've been doing a lot of elections, and elections are nice. It's fun. It finally gives you an idea of where the score is. But other than that, the real fight then continues on. Because after the election, what do we got after the election? Well, we got the holidays. That's good to look forward to. What are you guys doing for Christmas? I don't know. I don't know. I don't even want to think about Christmas because I don't want to think about spending the money. It's things have been rough all over the place, and I know a lot of people are suffering out there. A lot of people are having a hard time making ends meet, and here we're going into post-election holidays. Here we go into Thanksgiving, and of course Christmas is the big one. That's one where you spend a lot of money, because even if you don't buy a lot of lavish gifts, if you're like us, you're going to have to do a lot of traveling, and traveling is ridiculously expensive. And even if Trump wins, which you got to cross your fingers, I doubt he's going to get the gas prices down that fast. So that's what we got to look forward to in the Christmas season. But what's an even bigger picture? What's right happens after the Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays is we're going to have the first of the year. The first of the year is always nice. We'll celebrate that. We'll hope once again that things change, but who knows? We'll have to wait. We'll have to see. And that's why when people say, "Oh, this election is the most important election ever," you're the last election you're alive for to vote for, that's probably the most important one because you got to vote for it. Now, our country can survive whatever happens after the election, whatever happens after Kamala wins or President Trump wins, we'll sustain. I don't know what condition we'll be on the other side of the presidency, but we'll sustain. So we got to think further beyond the elections, and we'll talk about the elections. We'll talk about that. I got a Dr. Frank interview I want you guys to check out. But no, after the elections, we've got the legislative session coming up, and that's where, once again, we make policy. The Republicans, as far as I'm concerned, are not going to take the House here. I just don't see it happening. I see them potentially losing 1 or 2 seats in the Senate. It's always a potential. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. I hope that we get a bump from President Trump's presidency and campaign. I hope the down ballot votes get a bump from all of that, and we see all those Republicans. If they don't, win, hopefully they'll come close enough to make it look significant. And we'll see what happens after the election. But it's the legislative session that comes up afterwards. And we're probably going to still be in the same condition, folks. We're going to be in the same condition, and we're going to have to continue this fight. So get ready. It's a long haul. I wish it would be over. I wish tomorrow was the magic bullet. Tomorrow is going to be a fun day, and I'm going to be on election night, and I'm going to have a lot of people show up on election night. Nice thing about doing a podcast is they can show up from all over the place on the internet, and we'll be having them on tomorrow. I think Ben Edel has confirmed with me. Todd Vaughn said he'd be on. I got to get a hold of Kevin Starrett, see if we can get him on here. Michaela, I'd always like to have Michaela on here. We'll talk to a couple of the people up north in the Republican Party, I know. to see if there were any surprises in any of the races up north. But that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow night. So tomorrow night would be a good time to tune in. The pre-election, the pre-election night always sucks because you're just in Oregon. It's being a Republican or being a libertarian, period, is always facing the fact you're going to lose. Every election you're going to lose. I supported a lot of libertarian candidates, and I knew they were going to get slaughtered, and I watched them get slaughtered, and life went on. So we might lose a couple. We might win a couple. I'm excited to find out. I know you want to find out. But this country will withstand anything that the people choose or anything the machines choose. I guess depending on how you want to look at it, depending on what we eventually find out about these elections, because we may never know. We may never know if they're really rigged. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of anomalies out there, and I think it's very strange. And we'll talk about that right after I get out of this interview that have done with Dr. Frank. It was back in October. It was a really nice day out, and we couldn't get it was too loud outside because it was too windy. So we got a room at the library, and I want to thank the people at the Bandon Library. Very nice. Got us a room and allowed us to do the video in the room, and it was a good time. So I want to play that for you. And so here is my interview with Dr. Douglas Frank. Let's see if we can get this here. This is Rob Taylor, and we're sitting here today with Dr. Douglas Frank. We're going to be discussing the upcoming meeting that he has coming forward, or moving forward with, in the Coos County work session that's happening tomorrow. That is Thursday, October 10th, and it's going to be happening at 9:30 in Coquille. We expect a Professor Grimmer to show up, but we don't know because he's backed out several other times. But if he does, we would love to hear his numbers, and we'd love to hear what he thinks is wrong with your numbers. What do you think he thinks is wrong?
He has picked out in particular one aspect of my work, and it's called a straw man. When you make an argument, you pick out your opponent's position, misrepresent it, and then attack that.
Yes.
That's called a straw man. And
Yes.
so he's picked out one aspect of my work, made a straw man of it, and attacked it and published a little paper on it, a white paper. And so I addressed his concerns, and I think basically he doesn't understand my work. He wrote it soon after my movie with Mr. Lindell came out. Mike Lindell made a documentary about me called Scientific Proof. It's about an hour long. Suddenly, after that movie was made, 10 million people who knew who I was. And now everybody around the country, I haven't done anything but go around and help people since. And honestly, it just shows my naivete politically that I thought it was going to be 6 months long.
Yeah.
And here I am 4 years later. So
4 years later, it's amazing how that happens. I started doing stuff like this 30 years ago, and I'm moving forward. I think it's part of the fact that many people in this country have gotten lazy. They've gotten apathetic.
You think?
And I totally think. Yeah. And because of that apathy and what happened in 2020, I think people rose up, saw the election, saw the COVID mandates, and said, we're done. We're not going to do this anymore. And I think that I wasn't the only lone guy on the corner screaming, is what I found.
I think you're exactly right. I think of how many mama bears saw what their kids were learning in school because of COVID.
Right.
And so it's like activated this whole army of mama bears. And then I call them super moms. And then the election happened, and right in your face, cheating all over the place.
Yes.
Okay. And nobody will address it. So that woke up a lot of people. And so people say to me, well, have we fixed it since 2020? No. And so, but what will happen for sure, there's going to be a massive amount of cheating again. So there'll be another whole chunk of the public that'll wake up. Will it be enough? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Do you think that And I'm kind of leaping forward here.
Yeah.
Do you think that the presidential race, even if he actually gets the votes, they're going to take it from him in a cheat? Do you think it's that significant?
Oh, yeah. My favorite way of explaining this is I've been modeling elections my whole life. Since 1980, my first election. I'm 63, and I voted for Reagan, my first election, 1980. And ever since then, I've been predicting and using mathematics to predict elections. And I've been really accurate. I only missed one, and by 1%. And so I predicted that Trump was going to win in 2016, 13 months ahead of time.
Nice.
When there were 17 people in the primary, and I published all my math on all the social media. Hey, everybody, it's going to be Trump. Here's why. And everybody's like, you're crazy, you know. But no, he won. And so then people were very interested in what I had to say about 2020 because of that. So I came out with my predictions. I said the odds in 2016 were 2-1 that Trump was going to be the winner. In 2020, it was 20-1. And so I was posting those things on all my social media, and somebody posted and said, well, Dr. Frank, we hear there's going to be a lot of cheating. And I said, don't even worry about it. There's no way they could cheat enough. They'd have to stuff 15 million ballots. That's in writing a month before the election. Well, guess what happened? They stuffed 50 million ballots. And you know, people say, Dr. Frank, you told them what to do. No, I didn't. They know what they're doing. This has been in the works for decades. This is it. So now in this election, people are saying, what's going to happen this time? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. It's going to be a massive amount of cheating. Now, let me take you back for a second. In 2020, people forget that Trump was the president during the election. So after the election, he ordered the Justice Department to do an investigation. And these Justice Department agents spread all over the country collecting gobs of evidence. I've been in skip rooms with some of these guys.
Yes.
We have a lot of evidence. Trump had this in December of 2020. He didn't have two things. One, he didn't have the American people. We were caught in the head, and like deer in the headlights. Because as you pointed out, we've been so apathetic for so long, so disengaged. Nobody knew what to do. We all knew something was wrong. We're all going, something's wrong. But what do we do? Well, we're so inexperienced at this, we didn't know what to. That's the first thing. The second thing is he didn't have one legislature that would stand up for him. And that's why I was called to the state of Pennsylvania. I was at the request of the legislature. I was working on their election as part of their audit. So that got me all involved in this. But the reason I brought up that story is because all Trump needed was one legislature to stand up and say, we're not going to certify because look at all the cheating. Okay, so think about it. Not one legislature would do that. What do you think is going to happen this time? So let's say, let's take it as a given that there's going to be lots of cheating. Okay, so let's say Kamala wins. What's going to happen? The right's going to be angry. We're going to have contesting the election. And now that we're 4 years more experienced of being awake, I've got teams all over the country that will engage quickly. And so we're not so inexperienced. So that would be one interesting thing. Well, what if Trump wins? Okay, if he by some miracle is able to outperform the cheat. He's awesome, awesomely ahead in the polls. And it's like not even close. So if it's a real election, he's going to win. But like I said, I was so naive in 2020.
Why would it change?
I said, exactly. I'm not going to fall for that one again. So let's say that he does win. Well, then how many states do you think would jump up and say, oh, look at all this cheating. We can't certify. So no matter what, I think no matter which branch it takes, whether Kamala wins or Trump wins, there's going to be challenges to the election and it will not be certified. So I think what will happen is it'll go to the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment of the Constitution says if either candidate doesn't get the 270 required by a certain amount of time, then it's one vote per state, and each legislature gets one vote, and it's decided a tie by the.
That would be great.
Well, you think, except remember what I told you about 2020. Not one legislature would come to Trump's aid.
Okay, but here's the thing that I think they didn't come to his aid because wouldn't it be them admitting they're not doing their job by making sure those election voter rolls are not clean and admitting that there's fraud happening in their state? They don't want to do that. You know how politicians are. They don't want to admit that. And then for these, what were you just saying about how what was that last statement you made?
It doesn't matter which way it goes. Not a single legislature would stand with him.
Okay.
And I've met with the reddest legislatures in the country, and they don't like him.
If
The
they,
red
yeah,
don't,
but
people
if
don't like them.
right, but if it came down to the fact that each legislature in each state would get a vote,
12th Amendment.
aren't they mostly red states in this country?
Yeah, I could
And
show
they
you.
would still go for him. You think
I don't think they're gonna vote for him.
that would be interesting?
I mean, and the reason I say that is because not a single one of them would step up.
Yeah, but it would be different because
I agree.
I mean, it's kind of a different scenario.
We
They're
agree.
not
Yeah.
admitting to anything. They're
Yes.
just saying, okay, well, here's our vote for Trump. So I don't know. It seems like it would be detrimental to Republicans who didn't vote for him in those state legislators.
I think you're being logical and rational, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because that's what I keep being logical and rational, and I keep expecting the world to behave logically and rationally, and here we
It
are.
doesn't. It
Yes.
doesn't. And it's getting worse every day.
Yes.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, we're still going. It's an old camera, so I wanted to make sure
Sure.
I was worried about it.
Sure.
So talking about the legislators, none of them stood up for him.
Nope.
None of them backed him up.
Well, let me fix you.
Okay.
Not legislators, legislatures.
Churs, the whole entire,
Yes.
both bodies of
Exactly.
each house.
It
Right.
seems like, and I've done a lot of work around the country, and it seems like in every legislature, there's been one or two legislators
Right.
willing to stand. But let me just take the first one, Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano. He stood up, asked for an audit of the state of Pennsylvania. That's what got me involved in this. Well, what did he get in thanks for him asking for it? They took away his staff. They took away his office. They took him off of every single
Oh, wow.
committee in the I mean, this is a Republican war hero, state senator in a Republican majority legislature, and that's what the Republican majority legislature did to him.
He got canceled. He literally got canceled from the legislature.
From the right.
From the right. It happened to me. I can believe this. I totally can believe this. And this is sad that this is happening in our country right now because which way does Pennsylvania lean? They lean more left, right?
No, they have a majority.
Right.
Right. I can show you. I've prepared a whole new set of graphs where I've looked at the voting record for every legislature in the country, and I can show you like a snapshot. We don't have one good legislature, not even one. And people are like, well, but Wyoming is good. You know, Wyoming's got 8 out of 9 people registered Republican, and they voted 3-1 for Trump. They're the most MAGA state in the country.
Right.
You should look at their legislature.
Right.
Their legislature votes more to the left than a lot of the other states that are blue.
People don't realize that. And this is why I pull up the records of our representatives and
Yes,
our
you should.
senators. And people, instead of getting mad at the legislator for voting left, they get mad at me for pointing it out. And that sounds like that's the exact experience that you're having.
Exactly. So that's why when I tell you, I'm not counting on a red vote.
Right.
Because I've been there and done that. And I mean, I have sat in the offices with AGs and Secretary of States all around the country who are Republicans.
Right.
And hacked into their elections in front of their faces. And you would think if you show that they would say, oh, no, we have to address the problem. Wrong. They like it this way. I was with, in Louisiana, Kyle Ardoin. He's president of the National Secretaries of States Association last year.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, no, Dr. Frank, our elections are safe. And I'm like, why do you say that? He says, we're the state of the art. We have the gold standard of network security. He says, I even have this really cool app on my phone. He says, I can track the election in real time on it. He likes it this way.
Right.
But anybody who thinks that their phone is secure,
Right.
which he's simultaneously admitting that all of his machines are which they are.
Right.
Anyway, we confronted him. He resigned in April of 2023 because we exposed the fact that he knew that his machines were hackable and he committed to decertify him and he didn't do it. He actually resigned.
This is what people are finding frustrating. And since 2020, this is what I have found is that we have the same problem with a lot of our representatives, our Republican representatives and senators.
Yeah.
Same exact problem. And people see how the party behaves and reacts. So they're afraid. They're afraid to challenge any of these people. And therefore, they kind of go into this melees and then the apathy starts again. And that to me seems intentional. And they don't want us active. They don't want us paying attention. They don't want us pointing out the guy behind the curtain.
Because that keeps them in power and us asleep.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
It does.
This is the graph I was telling you about where, let me just make it bigger to make it easier for you to see. This is for the state of Oregon from the 2023 legislative session, and I'm showing you both the House and the Senate. These are people who vote 0% consistent with the Constitution and people who vote 100% consistent with the Constitution. This is from the freedomindex.org. They've cataloged all the votes. And the blue dots are Democrats and the red dots are Republicans.
Okay, I can almost pick. That's probably either Mannix or Dick Anderson in the low part.
Yeah.
And over here, that's either an Art Robinson, Dennis Lithicum, or Thatcher.
And we could look them up, and you're probably going to be right.
Right.
But notice, I mean, really, when you think about it, a true conservative should vote all the time consistent with 100%. And so these are your Republicans. So you want to know why you're in a mess.
Yes.
That's why you're in a mess. I mean, I kind of put a shaded line at 50%, but that's sort of arbitrary. I was with
Totally.
It
Right.
should be 100%.
It should be 100%.
Yes,
it doesn't matter if you're half the time screwing me over and not doing your job, you're fired. Isn't that the way you work? I don't know.
Yeah, you give these guys a C.
Yes.
And these are D's and F's.
These are D's and F's. And like you said, I could probably sit there and name out all of them. And it's sad that we have a Republicans who, and this is what's infuriating, like Wyoming, like Montana, where if they don't have to do this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Republicans,
The people are such a huge majority.
Right.
They could have really good
right.
people.
And it's the same in districts where we have Republicans who are probably 50% or lower. And you're like, we don't have to have this. We don't have to have these people being, because this is what the Republicans will tell you. Well, I got to work across the aisle.
I can't get anything passed unless I
compromise.
Yeah, right.
And you hear that all the time. Yeah. And that's what is infuriating people because, well, not in our district. Yeah. You can vote as Republican as you want. We don't want the money. Yeah. You can keep the bribes, let them keep it.
Yes.
And no, it doesn't happen. Yeah. And that's infuriating. It's infuriating. And I'll tell you what, to be honest with you, 80%, and that's loose, 80% of the people don't even know. Don't even know.
You're right on target there. And it's because I like what Plato said. Plato said the penalty for refusing to be involved in politics is you end up being governed by your inferiors.
Yeah.
And here we are as a culture not involved in politics. And now we have all these inferior. I mean, I could just walk up anybody on the street, shake them hand, meet them the first time. I bet you they have more ethics and integrity than your governor. Why don't we I would rather have them than these people who have been compromised. That's been a big education for me. I'm a physicist. So I spent all these years in the lab.
Right.
I voted every year. I did my civic duty. No, we're the government. We're supposed to be acting like it.
Right.
And I just, I had to learn that lesson. And we've become so disengaged. We're letting other people running the government. We're letting other people teach our children. We're letting other people run our elections. It's supposed to be us. And that's the situation we're in.
Yeah. It's a participation sport and people aren't participating and it's sad.
So we're going to lose that. America's an experiment in self-government. We're failing.
And we're failing. Yeah. We're failing desperately. Yeah. And with the academia and the K through 12 education that's coming through, I really don't see it getting any better. In fact, I see it getting worse. But here's why I trust a man like you, not because of what you say, but because of your actions. And this is why we also have so many bad representatives in the legislature. We have so many bad legislators because psychopaths and sociopaths crave power. The greatest way to get power in this country anymore is to work your way up through the school board, the city, the county, the state, and hopefully you'll be governor someday and you get to be the bigwig on the block. And that's what I see a lot of sociopaths making their way up the line. Whereas someone like you're not looking for power. I have never seen you searching for the authority over other people, power over other people. And that makes me think, well, this person is really in earnest in what they're saying and they're doing because they're not searching for that power. And that's what we have in the legislature today. And we've got a county commissioner candidate who, when he was in his early 20s, just talking to him and talking about his goals, I knew this was one of those sociopaths who are in just waiting for that career in politics, and you're watching him. And I watched him as a young man go from one committee to another committee till he's sitting on the city council. He's now running for commissioner.
Yeah.
And in 4 years, I'd be willing to bet state rep,
Yeah.
then the Senate,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
and he's young and he can do it.
Yeah.
And that's if you were, you know, and I looked at business careers the same way. This is before I'm an activist. I never wanted to be in office. I never want to serve, never will, because I'm not interested in representing anybody other than myself, because I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of a selfish bastard. I like my Second Amendment rights, and lucky for you, they're your rights too.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at things,
Yeah.
you know? And so I hope there's a lot more selfish bastards out there who would fight for those individual rights other than fighting to have power over their fellow citizen. And that's why I'm for a highly limited government, right up there with that Constitution group.
Yeah.
And-
Me too. You want the government out of our lives.
Right.
And with very limited power. Any amount of government is too much government, really. So you're trying to keep the government to a minimum, but it's just been ballooning. People loved Reagan. I loved Reagan.
Yeah.
But people don't realize from 82 to 88, the federal government tripled in size.
Yes. Huge. Yeah.
He was Mr. Conservative himself,
Right.
but he had a Democrat House and Senate.
Yeah.
And when he cut capital gains, I think from 32 to 15, it was about something like that. All these government revenues flowed in. Because
built
people
the
were cashing
government.
out, and they didn't say, "Oh, we're going to reduce taxes."
Right.
They spent all that money, made government bigger.
And that's the irony of government, because that's what gives them power as well. The deep state, the bureaucracy behind the actual government,
Yes.
the one that really controls what we do.
And that is really the bottom line why they cannot allow Trump to be president. I'm telling you right now,
Right.
they cannot allow it. I was with this beautiful black lady in Texas. She was awesome. She had the most sweet accent. She says, "They hate Trump. He's playing in their sandbox and taking away their toys." It was the cutest thing I ever heard. And she's dead on right. That's why they cannot allow him to be president.
Right.
What's the first thing he does? He gets in there, gets rid of regulations. He wants to drain the swamp.
Yes.
He's messing up their game.
He's talking about ending the Department of Education. Do you
Sounds
know
good
what
to me.
that's like? And I'm for it. The Department of Energy and
Yeah.
most of the departments under the Department of Interior and
Yeah.
Agriculture.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just the start. That's just the start. Then we can start with all the
So they
law
cannot
enforcement.
allow him in there.
No,
He's
they
got his
can't.
machete out and he's ready to do cuts.
And that's why they've created lawfare, and
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
it's you know, all the agencies are attacking
Yes.
him, the courts are attacking him, and this is all hinging on voter fraud.
That's what enables it.
That's what enables
I
it.
tell people it's like the story of David and Goliath. You know, David went to the battlefield, he fights Goliath.
Yeah,
And when he went to his brothers, he said, "Hey, brothers, get out there and get this guy." And they said, "Go back to the sheep, go back to the sheep." The problem wasn't Goliath. The problem was that the children of Israel were hiding in the hills, not fighting Goliath. That was the problem. But you had to deal with Goliath first. It's like
Right.
the elephant in the room. And so we have that same thing. I don't think elections are the problem. I think the very first sentence out of your mouth is dead on. Our culture is apathetic. It's like, let us have our crab and be down at the beach. We'll let somebody else run the government. Okay, well, you act that way, you're going to lose your country.
Yep.
So that's the real problem. But
Yep.
but what's happened is that over time, it's given them so much power through the elections. It's the only way to ever take back the power is to take back our elections. But that's the Goliath. We have to deal with that first. Everything else is downstream from that.
So, and I've often said this, I wouldn't give a damn about voting if we had the proper policies in place
Sure.
and nobody could change them, because then I wouldn't care. Nobody's going to ever garner authority over me.
Right.
That's not the way we work, because they've changed it into almost literally a direct democracy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
as
yeah,
far as the citizens now can decide what's right for you and
Yeah.
what's right for me.
Yeah.
And that's the problem when you have two wolves and a sheep voting once
Definition
for
of
lunch.
democracy.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so going back to a constitutional republic, because we didn't like the monarchies, we didn't like the
Right.
oligarchies for a
Right.
damn good reason. But
Right.
democracy is leading to a tyranny of itself. It's
100%.
tyranny of the masses over the minority. And we have that here in Oregon. They're violating our rights based on their their prestigious goal of democracy, and which is funny.
We're not a democracy.
We're not a
republic.
democracy.
Yeah.
And this was the funny thing. We were trying to get the commissioners to put advisory questions on the ballot, and the Democrats, and said, "You're going to destroy democracy if you put advisory questions on the ballot and allow people to vote on it."
Yeah.
And they were saying
the
that,
irony
and
of
you're
that.
looking at that, and you're
Yeah.
like, they're insane.
Yes.
They don't even realize the stupidity of what they're talking about.
Yes.
One, and they don't even know the real history.
Right.
You know, I hear the David and Goliath story analogy as well. David had to face Goliath. Of course, today BLM would come down with some de-escalators, and we would talk the situation down. And you go ahead and be slaves of the Philistines because it's okay.
Yes.
And so that's what they're asking us, to give away our authority and capitulate.
Yes.
And we can't. If we do, we're dead.
100%. And we've really already lost our country.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading an article the other day. It was Yuri Bezmenov, the defector from Russia.
Great.
40 years ago. And he predicted exactly what our country is like right now. He told us, this is what's going to happen to you. This is how communism takes over a culture. We actually plan it out. And we're right in sync with that. We are basically and I like G. Edward Griffin. He says, it's really not about us versus communism. It says it's about individualism versus collectivism. And he's right. When we want to be lazy, we rely on the collective.
Right.
When we take personal responsibility, that's individuals. So we're moving more and more, let them worry about it. So that's why you end up with cat boxes in your girls' bathroom and tampon machines in the boys' bathroom.
Right.
I mean, it goes preposterously ridiculous. You still have guns though in Oregon. So
we still barely, but
state don't ever. Yuri Bezmenov.
That's my number one issue. Is I've been
if
fighting
you
that,
ever relinquish. I mean, I just came from New York. I tell an example in my talks where in New Mexico last year, the Governor Grisham said we're going to put a temporary hold, and the people didn't comply. The people, she says, we can carry open carry guns. So all the people concealed started carrying open. Okay,
right.
And 50 guys that happened to be there that day put their guns on, went and stood on the Capitol steps and said, "Here we are, come and take them." In other words, they stood up for their rights. Well, I was telling that story in New York recently, and I said, "What would happen if you guys did that?" Their faces went white. They said, "Dr. Frank, we can't even own a gun in our state without a permit."
Right.
Well, wait a minute. We're not even talking about like concealed or permits. You
just
can't even
own it.
You can't even own one in your state. I said, well, what happened if 50 of you put guns on and went and stood on the Capitol steps like they did in New Mexico? Oh, the state police would come out and arrest every one of us. Think about that for a minute. Well, what if 100 of you did it? Well, they'd send twice as many cops. And I said, well, what if 1,000 of you did it? And then the room was silent. And then one of them said, oh, that might work.
That might work.
Okay, then guess what? You are obligated.
Yes.
Jefferson said, if a law is unjust, you have a duty to not obey it.
Right.
So really, they've been so compliant for so long. They've just gradually eroded their constitutional rights down to where they're, Jefferson said, when the people are afraid of the government, that's tyranny. When the government's afraid of the people, that's liberty. So I would say to you, Oregonians, never. And if they pass a law that says you can't, you need to stand up and say, well, you need to not comply.
Yeah.
And you're not breaking any laws. You're complying with a higher law.
Right.
Anything that compromises your constitutional rights, you'd have to comply with.
Right. And that's the first thing they'll go, well, you're going to uphold the law by violating the law. Well, the law's unconstitutional.
So you don't have to. In fact, you're not only you're obligated to not obey it.
Right. And because that's how we inherited this country.
There you go.
With those obligations and responsibilities. They always talk about the freedom of this and my rights for that.
Yeah.
And of course, today they're creating rights that do not exist.
Right.
Which kind of brings me to a point I was going to ask you about in voting.
Yeah.
Voting is a right. It's not a natural right.
I agree with you.
Nowhere in
it's
nature.
Not a God-given right.
It's not a God-given right.
I agree with you.
That's why we have to kind of fight for it in a better way, don't we?
Yeah, it's a constitutional right. And actually the federal constitution specifies that the states get to decide how they run their own elections.
That's right.
And so the fact that we have all this federal interference is very interesting because constitutionally, each state makes its own rules. And that's been complicated for my work as I travel the country. For example, here in Oregon, you just mail ballots to everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, man, is that a bad idea?
Yeah.
Especially since you have some of the dirtiest voter rolls in the country.
Yeah.
You're just basically littering the pavement with
Yes.
with ballots that can be scooped up and cast. It's just preposterous. But anyway, you could argue, and I'm just coming back to that. You could argue, you could say, well, gee, but this system you're using, because it's so bad, because it enables fraud, it's unconstitutional, because our state constitution gives us the right to have our ballot be counted and our vote to matter. And this system is actually diluting that. It's actually, every fraudulent ballot is actually nullifying one of our real ones.
Right.
So as a community, and this is the argument I make when I go community to community, is I say, your state constitution gives you the constitutional right to have your vote count. Well, guess what? The system they're using is disenfranchising you from that. So as a community, you should say to the state, we're not going to comply. And they say, oh, but the Secretary of State this and the Secretary of State that. And I say, it's unconstitutional. It's violating your constitutional rights. So stand up as a community. And I teach them how to do that.
You use the word community, and I have explained on my show many times that sometimes I don't like that word because it's used in the context of government community, political community, and I believe part of the reason we're becoming a totalitarianism is, number one, the hedonism, the search for pleasure, the search for instant gratification. It's going to destroy this country, because that's the first thing. If you don't have your pains, you don't know how good pleasures can be.
Well said.
And when you're nothing but diluted with pleasures, the endorphins don't work the way they used to work.
Right.
You get numb to it, and then it's further seeking down the road where things turn into hedonistic activity. It's horrible the way this country is going. And I think we can see it with the trans movement, the gay movement, just the drugs, like I said. And community is also being driven out. When I talk about community, I think of the churches. I think of the charities.
What I think of. Yeah.
Okay, all right, but that's not always...
your own city or your own county. That's what I mean when I say.
But they're destroying that.
Yes, they are.
In place of government, God, community.
Agree.
And we lose those little communities.
Yes.
We're going to get one big community that's one size fit all. And believe me, not all of us are going to fit.
And the reason they're attacking that is because that's where your power is.
Yeah.
Your power is in the local school board. Your power is in the local city council, county council.
Yes.
And so if you basically make those all state controlled, then guess what? You've lost your power.
You lost your power.
You have no power at the Capitol in the state of Oregon. Your power is at your local school board. That's where your power is. So that's why, and that's the argument I make with our elections. The states now, in every state, 50 out of 50, they've centralized the elections. They're centrally controlled. The county clerks don't even know what's going on in their roles. And, we were just talking about it before the interview about here in Coos County, how the county official thinks he's in control of his elections. He doesn't even know that they're connected.
Right.
Okay. So that's the problem. They've so divorced themselves from actually running them locally in their own community. Sorry for the word, but in their own local vicinity.
Right.
You need to, when I was a boy, on election day, my mom would take me by the hand. We walked down a couple of blocks and there'd be a garage.
Yep.
And everybody in that community showed up and voted, and everybody knew everybody.
Yep.
And they turned that tally in, and you could go double check and make sure that was the right tally was turned in, and you could see all the numbers, and you could. But guess what? Even the people running the polls today don't know the tallies, and they don't know. There's no way for them to check them throughout the system. So it's like no auditability internally.
Internally, so you can fix those numbers at the end of the
anywhere. There's like a dozen places to fix the numbers.
Yep.
And nobody has a way to catch that. It's like I love all these. I meet these old ladies. Dr. Frank, don't you tell me there's anything wrong with my election. I sat there all day long and I got everybody's photo ID and I made sure everybody's real. And I counted up the ballots at the end and I made sure it all was right.
Yeah.
And then I say, well, then what'd you do at the end of the day? Oh, I turned in the numbers. And then I went home to watch the election. And I say, well, did you ever call the county and make sure that the numbers that they put in for you were the right ones? And they look at me with these blank looks in their face. And I'm like, I'm sure what you did in person was splendid.
Right.
Okay. But then you turned it away and then you walked away. And most of the time they'll say to me, well, I don't even know how to check that. And I say, well, let's go check. And we'll go check and it doesn't match. And they're like, wait a minute, how come it doesn't match? Well, because what you did in person gets convoluted with the mail-in and military ballots and the early voting. And so there's no way for you to even know if your numbers were entered properly.
Right.
So they've sort of taken away all the internal checks, all the internal cross checks that people working in the system would be able to make sure everything was good. So they've basically taken it away from us.
Well, it's really gotten worse here in Coos County because a previous clerk, Keller was her last name. She got rid of the county's election board. Just blanket decision. We're going to get rid of it because no one's interested. 2020 comes along. And it was apathy. And I knew that there were people who just didn't care.
You're totally on. Yeah.
After 2020, you could have filled that room with people who wanted to volunteer.
Yes.
And now it's like, well, we don't want an election board because they review the election. And that's why would you have a problem with that if there's no, it's like the camera she wanted to put up, she wanted to put up the camera behind the computer as the person who's entering the number is facing the camera and facing the computer.
So you can't see what they're putting into the computer.
So you can't see what they're putting into the computer.
It's like the signature. It's like people say, well, I'm going to be a watcher and I'm going to check how they're checking in the ballots. And so you have to sit all the way across the room and you can't even see the postmarks. You can't see what they're doing. What are you going to do? Just sit there all day long in your hands.
Right.
I would be apathetic about that. I wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah, well, who cares at this point? It don't matter.
You're not really making any difference.
And that's the great worry here is that because people feel like there's nothing left they can do, they're going to get apathetic. And there is stuff you can do. There's always stuff you can do. What would you tell people to do if they...
That's why I'm here this trip. I'm supposed to be meeting with the team tonight. I call it the 7 steps. And, when I started this work 4 years ago, I thought I was going to fix the system from the top down. I was meeting with AGs, legislators. I would show them their evidence. I would hack into their elections. And I was assuming that these were people who, if you gave them the evidence, they'd say, oh, no, we have a problem. And they would fix it.
Right.
And nothing happened top down.
Right.
Okay, so forgive me, but it took me a year, but I learned it. Okay. So I graduated in 2022. I started learning grassroots work and I started reading Alinsky's Rules for Radicals and Beautiful Trouble and all these revolution books. And I realized this is how they've taken over our country from the bottom up.
Yep.
Well, we have to have bottom-up techniques back. We're not going to be able to fight top-down.
Right.
I like reading. I just finished reading The Art of War for my 3rd time in the last year by Sun Tzu. There's so many principles of war that we need to be using and thinking in our mind right now. So what I do is I've learned and I've developed this thing. I call it the 7 steps for taking back our elections. And when I first wrote it 2 years ago, what I did is I stepped back because I'd been traveling the whole country. And that's working, and that's working, and that's working, and that's working. So what's in common? And I kind of organized it into 7 steps. And then a year later, I was reading it with more mature, more wise eyes after.
Right.
And I realized all I was really doing was teaching people how to be the government again.
Right.
When people are being the government, guess what? It puts them back in control of their elections. So that was my own education. And that's basically what I'm doing. But the essential principle, the essential key strategic element of the 7 steps is that you don't have to comply with any law or policy that disenfranchises you from your constitutional rights. Therefore, show that the system you're using is compromising your constitutional rights. Bring that to your county leaders and say, and you're not going to them and saying, oh, pretty please, we don't like this system anymore. Will you get rid of it? You're going to your county leaders and saying, you work for us. We're the government. This system is disenfranchising us from our constitutional rights. You're legally responsible for this. We're going to hold you legally responsible for every case of fraud that happens in our county. And they always balk. Oh, don't blame us. It's the state system that's causing this. And by the way, we're not just coming at them and screaming and bloody murder. We're bringing them actual hard evidence of actual fraud. And that's a whole part of the process too. A lot of people think there's fraud when there's not, but we find real fraud. So you bring that and we say, we're going to hold you legally accountable for this. So my goal is to build a community of awareness and a community movement. And Kush, you should probably have 200 or 300 people, okay? And that would be sufficient for this job. And then with the evidence. And then they show up regularly at the county commissioner meetings, constantly bringing new evidence of actual fraud. Take out a newspaper ad and put it in the newspaper, publish it on social media. There's actual real fraud. And every one of these cases of fraud is disenfranchising one of your citizens from their constitutional rights. And we're holding him and file civil rights violations. There's a whole division of the federal Justice Department for this. I mean, you're going to make their lives hell. The commissioners, we're trying to just put them between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
They either kowtow to the state or they listen to their citizens.
Which is their job.
Yes.
The second is their job. The first is not. That's
right.
the problem.
Exactly. And so, and like in Shasta County, Northern California, how did we win? They had 5 commissioners there. And we had 2 that were on our side willing to defend the citizens and 3 that were not. So we launched a First Amendment war against the 3. We started marching around the building, picketing them at their homes. We launched a boycott against one of their business. We got 2 of the 3 opponents to quit, actually quit.
Wow.
And then they held a special election and we were able to replace one of them. So then we had the 3-2 majority. And then we started doing stuff in Shasta County. Now the state, I mean, this is a war and no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. So the states actually supported, can you believe this? The state of California sponsored a recall for the 3rd commissioner. And they had a recall.
That was legal?
Yes. Well, you're asking if they're the ones who make the rules. So
that's true.
Okay.
I forget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So they actually paid for a recall election against this guy and he survived by 95 ballots. Okay.
Wow.
And so, but then the state said, we're going to pay $400,000 for a recount by hand of the paper ballots. And he still survived. But it was like only 45 ballots at that point. But this is the state trying to keep the control. So it's a real war. But that's an example of the community stepping up.
But the state paid for a hand count, read ballot, but denies it to anyone who asked for that in the first place.
Isn't that interesting?
And isn't that interesting?
Yes. Huntington, just March of this year.
Yeah.
Huntington Beach, California, 400,000 voters in that city. They announced, the city commissioners announced, starting in 2026, they're running all their own elections. They're requiring photo ID and signature. They added 120 precincts. It's all local, one day. Wow. The state is saying, you can't do that. And they're saying, yes, we can. You know why we can? Because it says right here in our city charter that the state of California signed off on that we can run our own elections. So we are. Now, that's it's the second step in my 7 steps is you form a team, and one of the people on that team, think of it like a war council, right? You don't have all snipers, you have a general and logistics.
Right.
One of them is a researcher, and one of their jobs is to download and read their own laws. We've been out of this loop for so long, we don't even know our own laws.
Right.
So they sat down and read their own laws, and it says, well, we can run our own elections right here at our own charter. Now, when they did that, now there are a whole bunch of cities throughout California that are rewriting their charters because they want to join in. They want to take back local control. So the 7 steps is basically guiding people through a process of restoring their own local control. And what I've learned is once that happens, then guess what? The people go, if we can fix our election, we can also fix our schools and we can also fix our garbage.
Right.
And they start acting like the government.
They see a win. They see an accomplishment. And that's the trick, is actually seeing the accomplishment. Because when we went to the courts, which the courts, all the judges are appointed by the Democrats here.
Right.
So we weren't going to get a fair trial. And I even worried about that when we were spending all that money to do it. Yeah. And there's still a few cases that are whittling their way through. And I think they're going to say what they usually say, you don't have any standing.
That's what they always say.
That's what they always say.
Yeah.
How can someone who's a voter in election who wants to review the election not have standing? That's the craziest thing.
What you have to do, I always say you have to show the harm. The harm is what gives you the standing. If you're just complaining about the system, they're going to say, go talk to your legislator. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you can say, look, this harmed me. John smashed into my car, so I'm the victim. I have standing to sue John. Okay. Well, this system took away my ballot. It violated my so that gives you standing. So you have to prove the harm. And so many people all around the country, it's like Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So many people around the country are like, they come to me, Dr. Frank, I've got this new lawsuit. Look, I'm showing how the state is doing this illegally and the county's doing that illegally. And I'm filing a lawsuit against them. And I just look at them and I'm like, I've already heard this 200 times.
Yep.
You're not going to get anywhere this way.
Yep.
Now, I'm not against lawsuits because, like, for example, earlier this year in Georgia, Professor Halderman hacked into the Dominion machines right in front of everybody in the court case. So, so what that does is it makes it public knowledge. So, but the case is over, and did it change anything in Georgia? No. So you don't get any net effect from but you get education out of it.
Right.
So the public so I'm not against lawsuits, but I don't count on them for any remedy.
That's the only thing we got from our lawsuits was the information. And one of the greatest things that I got to hear in a lawsuit case was the judge ruled in favor of the county after stating that if they ran the election the exact same way they ran the election before, they would not get the same results. That's what the county said. And the judge said, well, if you cannot get the same results running the same election the same way, I'm going to go ahead and find in your favor, since you can't produce the information that they need. And we lost the case, but we got some really good information that if they took the same ballots,
yes,
and they ran it again,
they'd get a different answer. Wow.
Wow.
The Tim Sipple case, I testified in that one up in Washington County.
Yeah.
And in that one of my favorite parts of it was that I had to sign an NDA, and what happened was Sipple and Janet Dysinger, they requested copies of the voter rolls, which they're entitled to.
Right.
And the local clerk screwed up and accidentally gave them a complete backup of their entire EMS.
I remember this. Yes.
Yes. And so I have that backup. I signed an NDA so I could look at it. And one of the things that we were able to bring up because of that, and this is why I'm not against lawsuits, I just don't expect them, is it was revealed in court that your ballots are not anonymous.
Right.
Okay, so all of the ballots cast in your state, I could figure out who cast those ballots. And they're like, wait a minute, our ballots are not anonymous? No, they're not. And so exposing that is an outcome of that. Another important thing about that lawsuit is that was also filed against, it was a restraining order that your Secretary of State and Attorney General filed against Tim Sipple saying, you can't use any of those data because if any of that becomes public, then it makes our systems hackable. And they basically, your Secretary of State admitted that all your machines were online.
Right.
And during the court case, she was such a sweet lady. It's like, I'm guessing she's 70 or something, a sweet little Japanese lady with white hair. I love these people. They're public servants. They've worked for a lot of years. And she's the one who accidentally gave them the complete backup of the system. So she was feeling very defensive. And she was like, everybody says, I don't know how to run my elections. She says, I'm training my replacement. And she says, and I can turn the modems on myself. And I don't even need a password. She actually said that in the testimony. I mean, so court cases have a place.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But did it change anything in Oregon?
Not a damn thing.
And so I don't expect that to give us our remedy.
Right.
Just public education.
But the public education I don't know, it's invaluable. It's really, the information on there is just incredible what we've gotten from some of those court cases. And that's why we know why we don't have standing. We know why they're using that. And so I agree with you. Start with your own county. That's what I've been doing for years. As an activist.
That's where your power is.
That's where my power is. I can't do anything in Salem. I can't do anything across the state. I certainly can't do anything in Washington, D.C. And even if I was there, I couldn't do anything because I'm one man in a giant cesspool.
Yeah. People say, I want to be a legislator. I'm going to get elected to Congress. I'm like, why? Yeah. What are you going to be able to do there?
Right.
Okay. Your power is in your own town. Get on your school board and fix your schools.
So we were at the county commissioners meeting and the Democrats showed up because the commissioners were going to turn down the money they were getting from that
from
group.
The CTCL.
Yes, which is a Zuckerberg
Center for Tech and Civic Life.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg funds that group and by a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. I was blown away how much money they got. And so they were offering $50,000 and the clerk wanted it. The commissioners didn't like the source. So they voted against it. And I walked outside with a lady who is an environmental lawyer. Her husband was the only Secretary of State from Bandon who ever served as the Secretary of State. So he's like Saint Bradbury, of course.
Yeah.
And she comes up to me and she goes, how dare you? How dare you go in there and say these lies about that? And I said, they're lies. And she goes, why don't you think for yourself? And I said, that's insulting. First off, I did think for myself. Just because I come to a different opinion doesn't mean that I'm stupid, or it just means I disagree with you.
What's wrong with that?
She goes, well, if you want this kind of authority, you should run for commissioner. And I said, why would I do that when I already have the authority I have? As a citizen, I have the authority to be part of my government. I have the authority.
You're the sovereign.
To what? Yeah, I'm the sovereign.
Yeah.
I'm the one who can walk in there and demand questions to be answered. Why would I give up that authority to sit in a seat where I have to represent people like you?
Yes.
And then I have to answer to you.
Right.
I have the authority. And
they answer to you.
Yeah.
You're the king. You're the sovereign.
But that's what the Democrats think. She was a typical Democrat, and her and the other lady there who were top in the Democrat Party telling me, well, you don't have any authority. Where are you getting this idea? No, I am, like you said, I am the sovereign. You are the sovereign. Like I said, I'm a selfish bastard, but it's a right that you have too, lady.
Yes, exactly.
I feel sorry for him. As much as I was mad at him because they pulled me out of the meeting, I was pissed off the fact that they were too damn stupid to realize how much power and authority they have as an individual. And that's what we got to instill.
The left looks to government for power.
Always.
The right looks to the people for
the
power.
individual.
And so that's why it's collectivism versus individualism. And I think America was founded on the idea, the fundamental principles of our God-given natural rights enumerated in the Constitution, our liberty, our freedom, those are our natural rights.
Right.
And that is the true power. But we've been kind of hoodwinked into thinking that the government, no, we have to keep the government as small as possible to keep our power. And,
totally.
And we've lost that idea.
We have lost.
I'm not against government. I just think that it needs to be us temporarily.
We're the anarchists. And I've met anarchists in Portland during the riots yelling, you're a bunch of fascists. No, I'm not a fascist. I don't believe in socialism.
Right.
Well, I'm an anarchist, as he's carrying a sign that says he's for single payer insurance. And you're like, I don't think you think that means what you think it means.
Yeah.
It's like you're losing the meaning here. So the kids are even screwed up when they're up there protesting, and they're yelling they're Marxists, they're anarchists, and you're like, I don't even think you understand anything of what you're saying, because to me the greatest amount of freedom is being that sovereign in a country that respects those rights, not a collectivist that can take away those rights at any whim of the collective.
Yes.
That's scary. And so when those women, and they're Christian women, this is the funny thing. So when they go to heaven, do they have to defend themselves against the group they now have placed them with, or do they only have to defend their individual life? Because that's, if I have a concept of heaven, my concept of defending myself to Peter and Paul before I get through the pearly gates is I'm going to argue against what I've done, whatever my friend's done. Hey, that's on them. But that's not what the Democrats believe. And to me, that's a scary proposition, because it's hell on earth what they're breeding.
God's idea of government is not a constitutional republic. That was our idea. I like it. God's idea of government was a benevolent dictatorship.
That's right.
Where he was the king. And the rest of us were leaving each other alone. Okay? Right. My favorite way of thinking in terms of this is it's called the Golden Triangle of Freedom. And it was a prominent theme if you read through the Federalist Papers. And the notion is that in order for us to have liberty, we have to have virtue. In order to have virtue, you have faith, but in order to practice faith, you got to have freedom. And so the three things amplify one another. And when I say that in order to have freedom, you have to have virtue, people are confused by that. I was at first. The idea is, see, if I leave you alone, you can be free and I can be free. But if I'm like raping your wife and pillaging your land and stealing, okay, now you're going to have to take away my rights.
Right.
Okay. But if we have virtue and we behave virtuously towards one another, then we can have liberty. So in order to have freedom, we have to have virtue, but virtue is a natural outcome of a correct view of the world. Let's say it wouldn't even have to be necessarily a religious view, just as long as it's a correct
view of the world.
Exactly, where we have faith, we respect one another, and then that.
And there you go. That was the most of the interview. We went on for a couple of more minutes after that. That Dr. Douglas Frank is a genius. This guy could go on forever. It's listening to his stuff is just incredible. I wasn't, you hear these election deniers, the election people who claim the election was stolen this way, that way, and you hear them all the time when, especially right after 2020, and of course, what we saw with our own eyes, most of us knew instinctively that something was wrong with that election, and we had to do something about it. Many of us were we were ticked off, and so this is part and parcel why we started Citizens Restoring Liberty. I shouldn't say I really didn't have anything to do with the creation of Citizens Restoring Liberty, but I was there with the group as they developed, and I knew that just like many groups that they would fall victim to what most organizations do. They would fray and fracture and collapse because it's hard to organize individuals who just want to live their own life and be left alone. That's the problem with our own side. The left, they love collectivism. They love to be gathered up into rooms and told what to do and what to say and how to be in the special club. You want to be in a special club, the special little wokes club that they got there, the wokes club. And I'm not interested in being any part of that. So you would have to realize which way I'm voting, and I'm sure many of you are going to vote the same way. I really got to think Dr. Douglas Frank. That guy is phenomenal. And look into his work before you judge Dr. Frank. Look into his work and check out his research on the voter rolls across the nation. It tells a one hell of a story. And I think if anyone looks at the work without, calling it BS, without going in with a predetermined outcome already, against whatever Dr. Frank is doing, just stop listening to the naysayers and just went in there and looked at the work. If they actually looked at the work, I think more people would be just absolutely blown away with what he's able to show according to the statistics, the data, not the statistics, but the raw data from the voter rolls. And they tell a story, and it's just mind-blowing. And that's why it's important to vote. They're stuffing the voter rolls. I believe they're stuffing the voter rolls. I believe they're stuffing the voter rolls. Whether it's intentional or not, that's a whole other thing. But the fact is Oregon is being sued right now by Judicial Watch because we have really bad voter rolls. They're dirty voter rolls, which means they are being stuffed with people, the names of people who are dead, who have moved, who don't exist, who are college kids, who can get double ballots. Whatever the situation that's going on here in Oregon, that's legit. That's happening here. We have a stuffed voter roll, and they can put so many of those people who make up the phony voter rolls, the phantom voters, so to say. And the phantom voters are the ones, that's the term Dr. Frank uses to describe someone who they cannot be found, but yet they voted in an election. We know they voted. We got the ballot. We've got their signature. It's been checked. And yet we can't find the person. We went to the address where the ballot is from, and nope, that person doesn't live there. Oh, he doesn't live there. Well, then who voted for this person? Oh, we don't know who voted for that person. Okay. And we've actually seen that. We've done this, and we're going to do this again. We're going to get the list of people who are potential phantom voters. And we're going to go out there and we're going to find out who these people are or who they are not. And I don't know what to believe, but I want to find out. And I would think that anyone who's a registered voter would want to find out if our voter rolls are being manipulated. And if they are being manipulated, first, who is manipulating them, but how are they being manipulated? We've got to clean up whatever the problem is. But we're there, Judicial Watch wouldn't just waste their money to sue Oregon. There are plenty of states to sue, but we're the worst. We've got the worst voter rolls. And that says a lot when you're competing against, places like, Detroit and New Hampshire and New York and, such the states like that. It's like Detroit isn't a state, but you know what I mean? Eastern states. A lot of eastern states are just as corrupt as anything on the left coast here. And so I don't know. I just think that if we're the one state being sued by Judicial Watch, we really got to be concerned about the voter rolls. And talking to Dr. Frank in that interview, I can tell you what, it was a lot to do about what we're going to be facing. And like I said, we can withstand it. Whatever happens, we can withstand it. But after the election, we need to start finding out more of why the results that happened. We got to find that out, because there are some strange things, and we found these strange things in several of the different elections by investigating the clerk's office, investigating the election by going through the numbers and the data from the people who voted, the people who didn't vote, the categories in which they were voted on. And we've gone through that data, and it tells an interesting story. And I don't have time for that today, but we've done all that, and we're going to have to do that again after the election. And so I'm personally, this is just another I don't know, just another pinnacle in time that signifies just a little bit of what work we're going to be doing, because really what's going to prove how good we are is what happens in the legislature coming up this fall. And if the federal government, if there are no good people sitting in the House and the Senate, if the Republicans do not retain at least holding the House, at least holding the Senate, if they lose and Trump doesn't win and we get Kamala in there, it's going to be one bad couple of 4 years. And hopefully we can go through this stuff and find out what's actually happening so that we can hold some of these people accountable. I don't know. I don't even know if it's possible, but I'm glad there are people out there like Dr. Frank who's forming groups, and there's groups like that here in Southern Oregon who are looking into election integrity issues. And I'm glad that that's happening, and I'm glad that that he allowed us just a few minutes to do an interview with him. Let's see, what else did I want to get to before the election tomorrow night? Remember, I'm going to be live. I'm going to be live at the election. Get your voters pamphlet. My God, look at that thing. It's like a freaking phone book there. Jeez, no wonder the world is corrupt. We're voting on every damn thing out there. They were talking about the Portland ballot. Went to something like 56 categories for the mayor. There were like 9 people running, but because they have ranked choice voting, it went to a much higher number. I don't know the precise number, but I did read that somewhere, and I thought, geez, is that what's ahead for us? Can you imagine the ballot we're going to have if you got that many choices on your ballot? 2, 3, that's enough. I don't need any more than that. It's the policy, Joker. What is your policy? And so, after the election, we're also going to have to find out what our county clerk did. we talked about this on the last show. I talked about the county clerk and how she had held back from the commissioners the problem that was going on with the post office. We don't know if it was caused by the post office or by any of the other actors in this whole operation. And you got to remember, it's not easy to mail ballots out, that many ballots, but we expect pretty much perfection on election day. Perfection on election day is something that we demand in this country, because if you don't have that, well, then anything less, we're always going to be suspicious. And I ask everyone, don't be suspicious because you think that they're up to something. Don't think that the county clerk of Coos County is up to something by this snafu that happened at the U.S. Postal Office. We think, allegedly. We will find out. And because government is stupid. So don't underestimate the fact that government can be really stupid. So I'm going to hold my judgment on what happened here in Coos County until a couple of days after the election, when everything settles down, we get a clearer view of what's going on. And like I said, the Postal Service will probably have a really good answer, because they don't want to have to take the responsibility for any of this either. So, wow, what an interesting election. So tune in tomorrow night. I'm going to tune in. I don't know. I think I will be tuning in probably about, 8 o'clock, somewhere around there. I may come on a little bit earlier, because I got to go through the scrolling down of what's going on at the state of Secretary of State's office. Have you guys seen that? I don't know if you've seen that. Let's see if I can get that. Let's see. Is that possible? Of course not. It's not possible. Let's see. Can I get that share? Share. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Secretary of State's office. And if not, you really should be. Here's the website for them. On election night, this will be the little tab that you'll want to hit to find out anything on the elections. And right now, if you go to the elections, look, you can track election results. That's nice. That's nice. Let's see where that takes us. Where do we go there? Oh, yeah, this is the cool page. This is the page you'll want to get to. And you just click on any of the counties. Click on any of those counties, and they'll pretty much take you on the counties that you want to go on. Let's see, is that not? There we go. There we go. Yeah, these are the counties I'm talking about. This is the page. And let's see. You can hit the. This is Grant County here. I just hit it just to show where you can go get the results. Find out what happened in other counties. No, don't worry. They're just as screwed as we are. Yeah, it's not any better in Grant County. Things are not good all over. So let's see here. How do we? Yeah, let's get back here. Okay. So this is where you can get the results: state senator, state representative. This is for the U.S. This is for the U.S. And that will take you to any of the counties you need to go. And of course, we're not listed. So let me see if I can get you over here to this page. This is the Coos County, Oregon web page. This was the one I will probably be utilizing on election night. If you need to check out the elections, you can go here. You would not believe how many people have never seen the elections website. I don't know. I just let's see. Voter registration. Oh, look, there's a map. Precinct map. Actually, this one's all right. This one's all right. This is a 2021 precinct map. Now, right there are all the precincts of the county. And if you want to be a precinct captain, you have to run for precinct captain on every other year, which would be actually it's the primary of every even numbered year. So it'd be 2026 the next time this would happen if people want to run for precinct captain here in Coos County. And I think we've got 18 precincts. Okay, let's go back to this page here. There was something else I wanted to see. Let's go to. Okay, now it's going to let me out of this. Okay. Back to the home page. See there, it changed since the last time I was there. Nice. Nicer already and all ready to go. Well, that is the Secretary of State's website, and that was our county website. And we'll be spending a lot of time there on election night. We'll be talking to a lot of different people. I think we're going to get Ben Edel on here. We'll see what happens. I think I lost my camera. Oh my, I lost my camera there. There we go. I don't know why it does that. I really got to get that fixed. Okay, so not much happening right now. Nothing really does the day before the election. You know, we could be on the phone. We could be making a lot of phone calls, but I think it's going to be an 80% turnout. 80% turnout for the election this year. And if that's the case, you can get on the phone and try to reach that 20%. I suppose it's possible. If you have all the right numbers, you can get the right phone list. That's got to be some really up-to-date phone list there, though. And it's I think with the big turnout, with the 80%, and as much as what we've done for the political campaign that we did for the wind turbines, the breaking wind campaign, yes, again, see, that's one of those things. I think we're going to win on that. I think they're going to win big in Curry County. I think Curry County could go over 70% of the people who are saying yes to oppose the offshore wind turbines. I think that's going to be really huge down in Curry County, and I would like to think that we're going to get that same big amount of money, but votes here in Coos County. Who knows? You can only hope. And that's what's going on with if you're in Coos County, this is on the ballot. Oregonians against wind turbines. You can check it out if you want to see what we're doing, because this fight isn't going to happen to end at the election. No. This fight will continue well after the election, and you've got to put yourself to the mindset that this is going to be a long haul. It's just going to be a long haul, and you got to keep battling against the bastards. Don't let them crush you down. No matter how bad it could be tomorrow, and I shouldn't say tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. No matter how bad it can be on the 6th, You just got to remember the fight was going to continue no matter who wins. And so the fight's going to continue against these damn wind turbines. And if you want to get a little bit more involved, go to our website, Oregonians Against Wind Turbines. That's our Facebook name. And you can, if you live in Coos County, I'm asking you to please vote yes. Vote yes on Measure 6219. You can find us at, let me see if I can get rid of that banner there. You can find us on oawt.org, where we've got a newsletter that you can sign up for. And please vote yes. Vote yes to stop the offshore wind turbines. I know yes means no, no means yes. Very strange. Politicians, they just wish the world meant things like no means yes, yes mean no. It's the politicians. They got some really strange ideas on how the world should work, but you got to vote yes to stop the offshore wind turbines. And you can find out more at OAWT. And if you are in Curry County, you're a Curry County resident, that's Measure 8116. That's Measure 8116. Yeah, geez. I hope we win on that one. That one will be huge. That'll be big. That'll be a big one. I did hear that our radio commercials are being played on the Legend. I think that's really exciting. Those guys do a really good job out there, so I wanted to give them a shout out. If you want to support the cause, the Legend radio show or the radio station is an incredible place to go and put your advertising dollars. They are very professional in the things they do. And so I want to thank them for playing those commercials. We had several wind commercials. Well, what am I talking about? I can play. They have the audio on the Legend because it's radio, but I actually got a video of a commercial. Here it is.
Warning, the federal government is trying to put you in a fog when it comes to the offshore wind turbine project. BOEM just announced that it's going to start leasing offshore areas for the wind turbine project soon. This is after they ignored the objections of the environmentalists, tribes, fishing industry, and the general population. Are you tired of government overreach ramming green projects down our throats?
Yes.
Are you annoyed that the government is ignoring your concerns?
Yes.
Do you want to help stop wind turbine projects off our coast?
Yes!
Vote yes for Measure 8-116 and help stop the wind turbines. Paid for by OAWT PAC 23863.
That was done by Marty. Marty does a great job in those commercials. It's like he's got a face for radio. He's got a voice for radio. He does a damn good job. So I will probably have Marty on tomorrow night. We'll get Marty on here. Maybe I'll give Danessa a call and Diane a call. All the usuals. We'll have everyone drop by for a few minutes to give their appraisal of what happens. The first drop, it doesn't come in until about 8 o'clock. And then the second drop is anywhere between 10 and 11. And who knows what's going to happen with our county clerk. She likes to surprise us. Maybe Coos County has their own hours of when they can and cannot drop the numbers. I don't know. I never really looked, but that's what they rule by is the county. The election boards have made some rules, which the election board doesn't even exist in the county anymore, but they did make some rules. And so the clerk has to follow those rules, even though the board doesn't technically exist. And so now that she's done this flub up where, and I can't say that she did any flub up. It might be the U.S. Postal Service where there was a delay of those ballots going out. Well, yeah, it's going to probably be a good idea to get a voting, what was it called? A voter elections commission. That's what it was called, an elections commission for the county clerk. And that's not a bad idea. I like that idea. So we'll see, because it's all now up to who we vote for in Coos County, because if Bob Main wins, we'll probably get a new elections commission, and we'll probably get a few more answers to what's going on in the county clerk's office. If you vote for Drew Farmer, I don't know if we'll even get an elections commission, but if we do, it won't be full of anyone who is actually going to try to fight against the things that are going on in the county clerk's office. So it just all depends. It just all depends. Do you want someone who's going to appoint people who are actually going to fight for what's right? Or do you want someone who's going to follow diversity, equity, and inclusion policies? And that's the decision you're going to have to make between Drew Farmer and Bob Main. And it's other than that, there's really not much difference between the two. I don't agree with either of them on a lot of different issues. Both of them support the tax levy. I don't support taxes. So there you go. But I'm have to make a choice, so I'm voting for Bob Main. But yeah, we don't agree on everything, and that's one of the issues we don't agree on. So we're having fun. We're having a lot of fun here in the county, and so tomorrow night we should have a lot of people show up, and we'll go over a few different things. Before I get out of here, I gotta tell you, I do have sponsors, and my sponsors, they pretty much kick ass, and I want to bring on one of my sponsors, 3H Tree Service. Where are they? There they go. 3H Tree Service. You can reach 3H Tree Service at 541-294-1800. Once again, that's 541-294-1800. 3H Tree Service. They can take out those trees with surgical precision. I tell you, that's right. Surgical precision. Come in there, take them out. They do micro logging, I've heard. I'm not sure what it is, but they come in and they'll do it. And they have some really great videos. You got to check out their videos on their Facebook page. These guys are freaking fabulous. They are like superheroes. And check out Matt Holman's new video on how to care for a chainsaw. It was great. You've got to see it. I love the video, and I'm recommending it to a lot of friends of mine who kind of, let their chainsaw go to waste. But no, 3H Tree Service, they'll help you out with all your needs. And if you need to get some trees taken out of your yard, give them a call at 541-294-1800. Tim didn't pop on here because I'm not sure if he got the message or not. I sent it to Josh. That's one of his employees. Any of you who ever been to Tom and Gigs, you all probably know Josh. Josh was down there, and he's not at work today, so he didn't get my message to Tim, and Tim didn't get to come on the show and rant for a few minutes. And I love it when Tim comes on it, and especially right before Election Day. He would have loved a night before Election Day rant. Tim would have been great at that. But Tom and Gigs, if you need your automotive needs taken care of, you can get it taken care of at Tom and Gigs. Tom and Gigs. If you need a new muffler, Tim is the man for your new muffler. If you need some alignment done, they can take care of that. You need a light bar, they got a light bar. They can put on side rails. Whatever you need, all your automotive needs, you can go and talk to them over at Tom and Gigs. And if you need some of those RC cars, those remote control cars, you can get some of those over at Tom and Gigs as well. Herbal choices. Yep, herbal choices for all your herbal needs. You can get those herbal choices. There are 4 stores on Highway 101 alone. You can get one south of Bandon. Herbal Choices. Beautiful store down south of Bandon. They've got another great store, Coos Bay, on Highway 101 in Coos Bay. They got one in North Bend in the southbound lanes of Highway 101. And they've got one in the northbound lanes in Reedsport. So you got an Herbal Choices from Reedsport to Bandon to choose from. And I highly recommend, if you have Herbal Choices, they're the ones that are your choice. Let's see. They got one in Charleston as well. Charleston. Yep. They have a store in Charleston too. Oregon Firearms Federation. I don't know if Kevin's listening, but Kevin is still rocking the world out there. He is doing his part to protect our Second Amendment rights. And I'm glad I'm having my Second Amendment rights protected, because My government sure as hell ain't protecting them. They're violating my Second Amendment rights, and they're doing it on a regular basis. And I'm pretty damn tired of you, Mr. Government Man, violating my Second Amendment rights. How many of you out there are sick of these authoritarian control freak bureaucrats and politicians who just want to preach to you nonstop, telling you that you need to give up your guns so that the rest of society can be safe? The rest of society is either the people who are the prey or the predators who are preying upon the prey, the weak, the poor, the downtrodden, all of those people. Yeah. Nobody seems to care about those poor people anymore. No, nobody seems to give a damn about them. Who are they concerned with, government? They're concerned about the criminal who has stolen their guns. They have guns. They're probably your guns that they have stolen. You've ever had your guns stolen? Yeah. These people, they're sick. And you hear stories in the news all the time of people getting shot in their own house by their own gun. That's why I never understand these guys who leave their rifle right by their door. It's like, that's probably the gun that they're going to use to kill you when they come through your front door. And they're probably not going to kick it in. They're going to sneak in like the cowardly bastards they are. And they're going to steal your gun and they're going to blow your head off with your ammo. That's right. So there you go. Be careful where you put your gun. And you can find out about a lot of things like that and more at Oregon Firearms Federation, because they try to educate everyone on all the aspects of being a gun owner, and not only being a gun owner, but being a gun owner in a country that claims it wants to protect your Second Amendment rights on one side of its mouth, but on the other side of its mouth, the politicians are trying to take away those rights and put you in prison. You haven't done anything and they're trying to put you in prison. That ghost gun ruling should be out by the Supreme Court. I wonder how that's going to go. I don't know, but you need to find out. And if you want to find out, you can find out at OregonFirearms.org. And let's see, they're not my sponsors, but I want to always mention them. Bandon Gun Club, if you're in the Bandon area, Bandon Gun Club can take care of you. Find out more at bandongunclub.org. And Tioga Sports Park. Yes, Tioga Sports Park. And they are down south of Coos Bay, right if you're going south in Coos Bay, next to the dump. That would be left if you're going north from Bandon. And always go left. If you're going from Bandon, you take a left and you continue going on left. Don't go to the dump, because you can't shoot at the dump. They don't want you shooting at the dump. But if you take a left instead of a right, you'll end up at Tioga Sports Park. And as long as you're respecting all the rules, they'll let you fire your weapon. And I shouldn't call it, they'll let you fire your firearm. Why did I call it a weapon? That was insane. But no, they will let you practice there at Tioga Sports Park. And don't practice. Don't go to the dump. The dump is a bad place to go and practice your rifle. So don't do that. Tioga Sports Park. Go left, not right. Don't want to make that mistake. And that was just joking. I'm very sarcastic. What can I tell you? So I hope you all enjoyed the show. I will be back next week, and I'll be back tomorrow night. I hope you all had a good time. Where is my music? Oh, there it is. Let's see. Too many. You get too many damn buttons on here. Play. There you go. All right. Till tomorrow night. Join me tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I'll be on here. Got a whole bunch of people coming on. It'd be a blast. I think we'll have a great time. But until then, you know what I always say. Carry on, County. Carry on.